Right. Something just flashed on the screen. I don't know what. But... Oh, there he is. Uh-oh. Yeah. Yep. We'd leave him on a cliffhanger. It'd be a to be continued. It would, nice. Yep. Yes. Hmm. Oh, you're fine. Oh. Oh. Oh, gotcha. Right. Right.
Awesome. Welcome to another Whiskey Society. I'm your host, Judd. Tonight, we'll be interviewing Laura Leone. Laura is the West Coast brand ambassador for Whistlepig. Laura is one of our favorite guests. A long, long time ago when we used to hang out with other people. I would like to thank everybody for tuning in this evening. And if you're having a good time, send us a tip on our GoFundMe page. The link is right below. Laura, how are you doing tonight? It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you too, Josh. I wish it was in person, but obviously circumstances don't allow for that at the moment. I'm coming to you live from my trailer on the side of my parents' house. This is where I'm quarantining, and can't complain. I can't complain.
Awesome. Looks nice, at least. Nice and spooky back there.
Super spooky.
So how has the quarantine been treating a social butterfly like yourself? Because you're used to visiting multiple accounts every day, talking to anywhere from 100 to 1,000 people a week, and now we just talk to our families or our significant others. How's that treating you?
It's definitely been an adjustment. Truth be told, and secretly, when I was a kid, I was actually kind of a homebody and a little bit shy. And I think that not necessarily that I've reverted back to that, but I think the homebody part of me is coming out again a little bit. But I've definitely had my moments in my days.
Just embracing that inner
Yeah, a little bit. But I mean, there's definitely, I've had a lot of moments where I'm like, I just cannot wait to be out and about again.
100%. I agree with that. So do you have any embarrassing habits you've picked up during this isolation? Are you drinking vodka for a change, or eating bags of gummy bears, or anything funny that's developed over this past 5 weeks?
No gummy bears. However, peanut M&Ms. Oh my gosh, the peanut M&Ms. Like I can't even stop myself. Like I had to get like the Costco size delivered It's just, I don't know if it's a nervous habit or whatever, but you just have like one or two and then you're like, okay, you're satisfied. But yeah, the peanut M&Ms and IPAs. I've been drinking a lot of IPAs.
Take notes, everybody. Peanut and IPAs, that's the way to go. Unless you're
Yeah.
allergic to gluten or peanuts, maybe not the best
Then,
choice.
then don't do either. Yeah.
So, how did you end up getting into the whiskey game? If you could give us a brief Laura history and how you ended up like eventually working at Whistlepig.
Yeah, sure. So basically, I started in the industry about 14 years ago now, 14, 15 years ago. I started as a host at a restaurant, and then I worked my way up, eventually to bartender. Started running some bar programs. That led to me being the GM and the bar manager of a music venue for a couple of years, which was a really cool experience. And that's kind of where I really started getting a little bit more into whiskey. And then after I left the music venue, I started working at a whiskey bar in North County called Urge Oceanside, and that's where I really went super deep into whiskey. Whistlepig being one of my favorites, and started working with a lady who was running Whistlepig at the time for Southern California. And we hit it off, and she invited myself and my coworker out to the farm. We were going to pick a barrel. They are having a big party. And while I was out there, they kind of said, "Hey, we're looking for someone in San Diego. Would you be interested?"
And the answer is yes.
100% yes.
Awesome. That's super cool. So there's a lot of companies you could work for, and different brands have different styles. I've always found Whistlepig to be one of the more inspiring companies out there today. What is it like working for like an innovative company like Whistlepig?
It's awesome because we're still independently owned. And that gives us a lot of freedom to do things very uniquely, where a lot of other brands don't necessarily have that freedom. With the way we've grown this company has been very organically. And I think sometimes if you were to look at a room full of our employees, it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense as to everyone that's in the room, but it makes sense to every single one of us because each one of the stewards, everybody that works in, from production to the bottling line that works the farm, they all have a purpose here, and everybody's personality, it just fits with this company. And I don't know, we do things differently, we do things uniquely, and they've offered a lot of opportunities and things that I know that I wouldn't have gotten with a lot of other companies. Yeah.
That's cool. Awesome. All right. Let's dive into Whistlepig, shall we? Perhaps we can start off with how Whistlepig was founded, kind of what like the dreams or aspirations were in the beginning and how all those came to fruition.
Yeah, definitely. So Dave Pickerel, he was our master distiller and one of the founders of this company. Previously, he had been the master distiller of Maker's Mark for 14 years. Now, there was never a thing where it's like he didn't like Makers anymore or thought that like, oh, I just don't want to work for this company. The thing that happened is halfway through his time of working at Makers, they let him go participate in a kind of experiment, if you will, to resurrect George Washington's old distillery at Mount Vernon. Now, when he got there with several other distillers that were participating in this, they figured out that George Washington had mostly been distilling rye. So he had never really worked with rye at that point. So they start trying to distill some rye whiskey while they're there, and he just fell in love with it. He fell in love with that category, and once he got back to Makers, he kind of knew at that point he wasn't going to be satisfied until he could start doing his own rye. So he kind of started formulating his plan right then and there as to when he was going to make his exit from Makers and start a rye company.
That's awesome. And one of the really cool stories, one of my favorite stories about the whole Whistlepig, the origins of Whistlepig, is you guys found an amazing stock of like epic 10-year-old Canadian whiskey, and it kind of kickstarted this whole adventure. Could you talk a little bit more about that whole like kind of what was happening? Because I've just read it in a few magazine articles, but never really heard it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so one of the things with whiskey, as everyone knows, it takes time. So you can't just go, oh, I'm going to start a new whiskey distillery and then, pump out some bottles in a couple weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
It's got to be aged and aged for a good amount of time. So knowing that, David kind of pre-planned when he was leaving Makers, he knew he was going to have to find a source to start the brand off. So what he did is he kind of traveled to all of the distilleries throughout the world that he knew were making either 100% rye or close to 100% rye distillates, because he wanted to check them out and see if it was something that he could feasibly use to start the company. So it was during that time, and he did this for about a year. So it was during that time that he came upon that distillery in Alberta, Canada, and got a hold of that stuff and was like, I found it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this is the stuff. This is what we're going to start this company with. At the time now, he didn't really have the money to be able to buy it all up. So that's when he went in search of a financial backer. But because he was who he was, he basically told him, put my name on all this. I want it all. I got to go get the money, but I'll be back shortly. And, he was able to secure that pretty quickly. And that's where we got the juice.
That's awesome. Is that kind of what we have in our 10-year-old bottle here?
Yes. So that is still the Alberta distillate there.
And all you out there that don't have a glass, it is delicious. Go grab a bottle.
Yeah. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
It is fantastic. It is some phenomenal juice. At that time when Dave had announced that he wanted to do 100% rye whiskey at a very high proof, a lot of people in the industry kind of laughed at him because at the time rye wasn't a really big category, and especially like at such a high proof, people were like, it's not going to be drinkable. Like if you're going to do 100% rye at a high proof, it's going to be too hot. It's going to burn the back of your throat. All these things that people had kind of thought about rye. But when this first came out, it'll actually be, so our 10-year anniversary of the first bottling of Whistlepig is this July.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so it'll be 10 years this July. And when this first came out back in 2010, it scored 96 points in Wine Enthusiast. So that kind of let all the haters kind of go, oh, okay. Never mind. Maybe he does know what he's doing.
No, it has an awesome smoothness, but still has that rye bite that you're looking for, that little bit of spice there.
Yep. It's got a nice long finish too.
Can't imagine what it would be like to be in that warehouse, like tasting barrels and being like, these are available and they're like all delicious. And that's got to be a great moment. Like future is going to be bright, even still unknown. Another really cool thing about Whistlepig is the farm. And you guys talk about that a lot. I've seen tons of pictures and videos. But you guys are growing the grains, you're harvesting the grains, you're mashing it, fermenting it, distilling it. The maturation's happening all on this farm. This epic, very farm to table kind of approach there, which is really cool. And I read that you have pigs, sheep, goats, bees, horses, and then a 20-acre maple forest of maple trees. And then one of my good friends and teammates with 7 Grand, Mr. Javier, is obsessed with your barrel-aged maple syrup. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Javi loves using it for old fashions.
Yep.
How is that made? Is that coming straight from the farm and then aged in old barrels from you guys, or?
Yeah. So as you said, we have just about a 500-acre farm. It's about 120 years old. It used to be an old dairy farm, and we converted it to what is there now for our working distillery. So there are maple trees there. So we built a sugar shack, and essentially every season, we make maple syrup. We then take that maple syrup and we get our empty whiskey barrels and we put that maple syrup in there for 6 months. So we age the maple syrup in the barrels, the wet barrels, for 6 months. So it picks up some of those really nice rye whiskey qualities to it. I swear to you, I've had people sometimes go more nuts over that syrup than they have over the whiskey.
Yeah, oh, no. Javier, he talks about it every day we work together. He's like, we got to get some more of that syrup. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, we can. And that's another great question. Can we buy that syrup? Is there like a place can you find it on like a website, or is it like a distillery only thing?
So unfortunately, at the moment, because our sugar shack is pretty limited, the amount of production we can do on it is not huge. It does make it pretty scarce. So it isn't currently available for purchase. Typically, it's something that we'll use for customer loyalty, or let's say for accounts that are doing a Whistlepig cocktail. We'll maybe bring it to them so that they can use it as the sweetener in their old fashions or things like that. We use it a lot too when we're going to be doing pairing dinners. We'll give some to the chefs so that they can use it in their sauces or their glazes or things like that, the desserts. So it's definitely not something that is typically readily available, but there are a few times when you can get it. There was a little bit of a time where some of the retailers were able to get it, and they were putting it on their websites, which there may still be a few of those out and about. But we kind of had to put a little bit of a stop to that just because we don't have the capability to keep up with that kind of production.
I totally understand. If you guys do ever see Whistlepig's maple syrup out there, I highly suggest you grab some. I actually stole half of the bottle that you gave us and used it for my pancakes at home.
Yes.
And they were absolutely delicious.
Yeah. I have to admit, I have done that once or twice myself. So
obviously, finding that epic backstock of 10-year-old Canadian rye kind of like pole vaulted you guys into like the whiskey industry. But you guys didn't just stop there. You guys continued to grow and innovate.
Right.
I would love to talk about one of the things I read was saying that you have 3 questions that you asked during the process of making whiskey. And the first one is, how was this done in the past? Number 2 was, have we learned anything since then? And can we make this better? And then the third one is there a way to do this that's worth exploring? And I really loved hearing that because it's kind of like you're respecting what was happening previously, but then super open to any potential like opportunities to create amazing juice. One of my favorite Whistlepigs is the Old World 12-year-old, which is going to be a blend of port, Madeira, and French Sauterne casks.
Yep.
Absolutely amazing right here. Go grab yourself a bottle of that if you don't have it. Maybe you could like tell us about some of the cool things you guys are doing right now and these awesome blends that you guys are kind of putting together.
So obviously, the blending and the different finishes and stuff that all started with the 12-year, and that was a pet project of Dave's that he spent over I think probably like about a year and a half on that project, which was really pretty innovative at the time, and especially for triple finish. There was a lot of single finished whiskeys out there, but not necessarily triple finished. But Dave was always looking to innovate. He was always looking for the next thing, and not in a way just to innovate for innovation's sake. Like, we're not trying to make like, birthday cake rye or something like that, and he always said that would be, the day that he would, that he would cry is when he saw, like Whistlepig birthday cake rye or something like that. So it wasn't just innovation for innovation's sake. It was innovation to find things that are actually awesome and good and amazing, like the 12-year. So that kind of like led us down the road to piggyback and to farm stock, to those projects. I don't know how much you want me to get into each of those, but those have had their own unique stories and the way that they came about, especially the farm stock. And the farm stock is actually retired now. So the one that you've got there, Josh, the farm stock 3, that is the last and final one of the series.
Hear that, everybody? Grab this because it is gone after this.
Yeah, so that is the final one of the series for the farm stock. But then, we've got the piggyback now, which I've got right here. You can see it. This one right here was, honestly, I can say piggyback is finally the product that Dave had set out to kind of release from the very beginning. Something that was very bar friendly as far as price point, but that was still a super high rye, which it's 100% rye, and still at a high proof, 96.56. This is a 6-year rye as opposed to a 10-year. Initially, when I first heard that we were doing a 6-year, I got like a little nervous. I shouldn't have, because I should have had a little bit more trust. And when I actually finally first got to taste it, which was, way before it ever came out on the farm with Dave, I was like, okay, I can get behind this. This is something worth putting out. And that actually just finally came out last year in July. And that one is not going anywhere. That one is actually part of our core line now. So now we have the core 4. So it used to be the 10, the 12, and the 15, but now it's the piggyback, the 10, the 12, and the 15.
Awesome. Maybe we could just run through the whole lineup, kind of tell us what's available in liquor stores generally. I know you guys have some epic limited edition whiskeys that come out once a year that only the few and lucky get to try. Maybe we could just start out at the beginning and work our way up to the epic Hog series and kind of talk a little bit about what those whiskeys are and why we should drink them.
Sure. So obviously, I just went over the piggyback. Yep. So that is the lowest age statement in the core line, but again, still 100% rye and still at that high proof. Then you kind of already showed it, but we've got the 10-year, which is our flagship. This is what we built the whole brand on, and this is what's been out the longest. Readily available, 10 years old, 100% rye, 100 proof. So this is a high proof one as well. The 12-year, which you already hit on. This one's finished in the 3 different European wine casks: the Madeira, the French Sauterne, and the Port. Really, really a beautiful whiskey. And you said this was your favorite. It's also my favorite. It's honestly the whiskey that made me want to start working for this company.
Stick a light for us.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I know it's a lot of people's favorite too. I'll say that, and people go like, "Oh yeah, This one I call the converter, because people will say they don't like rye, and then I have them try that, and they're all about it. Then we've got the 15-year. What's super cool about the 15-year too is the age statement alone. You don't see a lot of 15-year-old rye out on the market today, especially not super readily available. The cool thing about the 15-year too is that, looking for another finish to do after the 12-year had come out, Dave kind of looked to home, again, at that farm that we have. He thought, man, we have all these oak trees on this farm. I wonder what those barrels would do to whiskey, So he had a few of them cut down. By the way, every tree we cut down on the farm, we do immediately replant. But so, he had a few of them cut down. We sent them down to independent stave, and they made a few barrels for us, and we put that 15-year whiskey in there and kind of let it see what it's going to do. And it really gave this very unique flavor to the whiskey, because Vermont oak is not like any other kind of oak in the country. It's very, very, very dense. Your typical oak is between I think 8 to 12 growth rings per inch, and Vermont oak is about 25 to 29 growth rings per inch. So it just gives a completely different flavor profile to the whiskey than what your typical oak would be. And then we use a number 3 char on that, I believe, too. But it's really a fantastic, like I said, the age statement alone, and then finishing it in that Vermont oak. It's pairs really good with cigars. I'll say that too. Right. If you enjoy a good cigar out there every now and again. So those 4, that's the core line. Those are readily available. You can pretty much find those at any liquor store that's out there. The farm stock, which I don't have that bottle with me, but Josh has got it with him. That farm stock 3. That one is a limited edition. It's not allocated, so you can find it out and about, but it is a limited edition. So once it's gone, it's gone. And that is the 3rd and final blend. So we did a farm stock 1, We did a farm stock 2, and then now 3. So the cool thing about farm stock is, as Josh was speaking about our farm, how we're growing the grain, we're milling it there, distilling it there, using our well water, using those same Vermont oak barrels again to age it. So this is 100% estate whiskey. We're doing everything on the farm with that distillate. Dave was really anxious to want to get that distillate out to the public, right? Because we're proud of it and it's something that we wanted people to start trying. But at 1 year old, not really ready to be put out for people to try. So again, with his innovation, he came up with the idea of farm stock. With that being that we would take some of that 1 year distillate, we would blend it with some of the 10-year, and we would blend it with some of the distillate that we use for the 12-year, but obviously, not finished in those wine casks and things. So that first edition that came out, that was 20% of our 1 year juice was in there blended with those other two, right? Then the Farm Stock 2 came out, and that jumped up to 32% our 2 year juice blended with the other whiskeys. And then now with the Farm Stock 3, it is the majority of the juice in the bottle. So it jumped up to 52% of our 3 year juice that's in the bottle. And it's blended, I believe, with a 10-year and a 6-year. But it's just such a cool concept that Dave had to be able for us to get that distillate out there while it was still so young and not quite ready to be the total star of the show yet. So you can still find that out there, but again, like I said, it is limited, so there will be a point when that's no longer available on the shelf. And then we got 2 more. We got the 18-year. So this one, it's kind of hard to see because the label's a little. So the 18-year, this is the oldest thing that we have ever put out. This is a double malt. So it's got malted rye and malted barley along with the regular rye distillate in there as well. And it's really a beautiful whiskey. It's a lot more mellow than you would think. I think just because of that double malt process. But that one came out, that is allocated. You can't find that everywhere. It is available in some stores and at some bars. I know they had it at $7,000 there, and they still do. So when it
We got a full
back,
bottle, Laura, because no one's been able to drink it. So
yeah. So whenever $7,000 opens back up, you guys can head on in there and get some 18-year. And then last but not least, and this is something that we've been doing. This is actually the 6th edition that we've released. But again, like I said, we're about to be 10 years old, so it's not something that we've done every year. It's just something that we've done when we feel that there has been something special enough and unique enough to release, but the Boss Hog. So this is probably going to be a little bit hard to see because the label's so dark and it's dark in here. So this is the 6th edition of the Boss Hog. This is called the Samurai Scientist. I don't know if you can really see, but the cork there is it's a pig is a samurai. And so the cool thing about this one, this is actually the first whiskey ever to be finished in Japanese Mishu barrels. Very, very unique and distinct finish on this. I had previously thought that the Boss Hog 4 was my absolute favorite and that nothing was ever going to top it. And then this one came out and it actually beat it, which we beat ourselves. And the Boss Hog is like a cool thing. So concept of Boss Hog is essentially, there's 5 rules to Boss Hog. One is it will always be single barrel. It will always be barrel proof. It will always be something completely unique to anything that we've ever done before. It's always going to be innovative, and it's always going to be stupendous. We're never going to put nice in a Boss Hog bottle. So whenever you see those releases of the Boss Hog come out, know it's something that's top quality and something very unique and probably like nothing you've ever had before.
I will 100% agree with that. Every Boss Hog I've had has been absolutely mind-blowing. I think the Black Prince is probably my favorite out of the ones I've tried. But that's just because I'm spoiled. Let's talk about your favorite Whistlepig and your favorite non-Whistlepig whiskey.
Okay, so favorite Whistlepig is same as you. It's the 12 year.
12 years.
Um,
It's so good.
it's kind of funny because it's almost like, you know, when you get stuck on a Netflix show for a little bit, so you binge one for a minute, right? And so you're super into it for a minute. So like
I'm sure no
sometimes
one's going to relate to that right now.
yeah, so sometimes it'll be like I'm super on like a 10-year kick or a piggyback kick or whatever, but I always go back to 12 year. It was my first love with Whistlepig, and I think it will always be my favorite. Non Whistlepig, I love E.H. Taylor Rye.
Ooh,
That
that's a good one.
is one of my absolute favorites. Yeah, I mean the E.H. Taylor Rye is holds a high place in my heart.
I got
And
a model so I can show people what it looks like somewhere. So this is the barrel proof, but the rye will have a similar label, and it is
right.
absolutely amazing. And you can see how much I like it by the fact that I have one glass left. So
yeah, and yeah, it's a little bit, you know, it's a little pricey too. I think the last bottle I bought was around $90, but it's well worth the dollars, and I highly recommend it. Someone asked about my first experience with rye, so that was actually back when I was running that music venue. Because again, I was running the bar as well, so when I would go out to do all the buying and stuff like that, I was actually at the Young's Express store one time picking up some last minute stuff for a big show that we had that was sold out. And I was passing down the aisle and I saw this bottle of Rittenhouse rye, right? And I'd never tried rye whiskey before. Something about the label I just thought looked cool or whatever, and it was like $18 or something. So I was like, oh, I'll give it a try, you know. So I grabbed a bottle of it, and when I got back to the venue, we had the show. After the show that night, you know, like 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm just closing everything up, and I thought, oh, I gotta try that whiskey. So I poured myself, you know, a good pour of it, and I started sipping on it, and I was like, oh my gosh, what is that? Like, this rye stuff is actually kind of good. So then that just led me to start trying every rye I could find. So every time I'd go back, I'd buy another rye, and I'd keep going from rye to rye to rye, and then it just grew from there. And that was pretty much the end of that story.
I 100% agree with you. I feel like the first rye I ever tasted that really blew my socks off was like Rittenhouse 100 because it had like that bold, spicy intensity. And me personally, I love high proof whiskey. The first whiskey I ever tasted that I was like, not just being in college and trying to get drunk, but really like, all right, I'm at a tasting, I'm gonna try this whiskey was Booker's. And I remember trying it for the first time.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it feels like there's a pine forest on fire in my chest. And I loved it. And I'd never experienced anything like that. And so when I had my first rye afterwards, I was like, all right, yep, I'm into this. And I've always been a rye fan since then. One of the things that's really cool about the E.H. Taylor rye is it's so smooth and like velvety. It's like no other rye on the market, that's for sure. Not that it's better than the 12-year-old Whistlepig. Don't get twisted.
Well, and that's the thing too. It's like, you know, I work for Whistlepig, yes, but you know, as I mentioned, I was working at I was running a whiskey bar before I started doing this. So obviously, like, I have other whiskeys that I drink. You know, I mean, one of the first things when you know, I was thinking, all right, if they actually put us on this quarantine thing, if they're gonna do this lockdown thing, what, like, you know, everybody else makes lists of like, okay, what do I need to take with me for whatever, and mine was like, what whiskeys am I bringing? Because I just needed to make sure that I had, you know, so I brought like my Elmer T. Lee, I brought my E.H. Taylor Rye, I brought my Maker's RC6, I brought, you know, I brought, you know, some of the ones that I was kind of like, all right, my 1796 single barrel, I'll bring that along as well. You know?
Right. I hear that. Well, Laura, honestly, I love the story. I mean, I can't even say how many times I hear it, and every time I learn something new, which is just always fascinating, which keeps me like super excited to always like have you join us again and again and again. And I hope you're holding up in there in the quarantine times. Let's answer some guest questions and see what these people want to hear about.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions out there, hit us up in our comment section. and we'll answer questions for the next 10 minutes and see what you guys have to say. So let's see what we've got.
Favorite cheap rye? I think I said Rittenhouse. I can still get down on some Rittenhouse. That or like the Wild Turkey 101 rye. That's another go-to.
One of the best.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Do we have any idea why green is associated with rye? You know what? I've often thought of that myself, and I don't know. I really don't know why green became like the signature color for rye. But like Woodford does it, Beam did it, Jack did it.
Yeah, Wild Turkey does it.
Wild Turkey does it.
Even the E.H. Taylor is green. I think is like a green like font. Maybe it's orange. I don't know. It's been a long time.
Basil Hayden did it.
So.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, Basil Hayden did it too. I'm not really sure why that came about. Angel's Envy has been my go-to rye for a couple of years. Angel's Envy is another good one. They also did green for their rye.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was like one of those things, like the first few. Like if I think about the big dogs that were making rye before everybody else was really making rye and it was popular, I'm instantly thinking about Wild Turkey.
Yeah.
And they were green, so maybe people were like, "Hey, let's just make it green." Who knows?
We got a good Mike Gerard, actually. Hi, Mike. He just asked, what's next from Whistlepig? So that's actually a really good question.
That was the question that we were talking about, but I think we skipped over it. Hear about the home stock.
So as I mentioned, Farm Stock as a series is done now. Does not mean that we are done innovating or done coming up with new things to bring you from the farm. So just found out, honestly, a few days ago myself, that the new release that we're going to be doing, probably should see it in market maybe in about a month or two here. It's going to be called Homestock. So this is kind of a really cool concept. Being the given situation, everybody's stuck at home, right? So Farm Stock had been able to be this thing where I could get together with some industry folks and we could have like blending parties and sessions and kind of like, oh, if we take these three components and we blend them in different ratios, like what's that going to taste like and things like that. And that's kind of how all the farm stocks were done. So we figured, why not still do that? But because everyone's stuck at home, what we did is we partnered with Flaviar, which is a online whiskey store/membership thing. And what we did is we offered blending kits out through Flaviar for people to order into their home. So that and we gave instructions on the parameters and how to blend it and all these things. I believe some of these kits just got shipped out last week. And basically what it is people are going to be able to do their own experimental blends at home with these kits, submit in what their blend was, what their favorite blend was. And then at the end of this month, our master blender is going to do a live thing online and pick the favorite blend. And that's going to be the winning blend. And then we will release that as Homestock because everybody did this at home. And that's going to be coming out, like I said, into market probably in about a month or two. The other really cool aspect of this whole project is that we really wanted to make sure that we were going to be able to give back due to the given situation and everything that's going on. So 20% of all sales of that home stock is going to be going to the USBG Bartender Relief Fund for COVID.
That's awesome. That's an awesome project. How do people become a part of that, or is it already too late for us? And it's something that's going to come out, but it's already like right now the process is the ball is rolling.
So it was something that we had to put together very quickly just because of the given situation, and to make sure that we were going to be able to get this out in time and get the sales in to be able to give that money back. It's something we did pretty quick. So I think all the kits went out already. They did this announcement online. And they said, hey, if you want to try to get a hold of a kit, this is when we're going to release them, and you can jump on this website to register. And I think we did about 500, so I think they went pretty quick. But you can still, I haven't gotten my kit yet. They're actually sending that to me. So I was kind of thinking it might be cool. I might do like an Instagram live thing and kind of let everybody in on my blending process when I get my kit. And then anyone can tune in. I believe it's going to be April 26th to see our master blender along with a couple other people that are going to choose the final blend.
Yeah, and just send us those links, Laura, and we'll make sure to get them up on our Instagram and our Facebook pages. That way people can tune in and watch that whole process. My only concern is you won't have the best blend available because $7,000 wasn't involved. But other than that, I think it's a great idea and a really, really awesome project. But with the expertise of $7,000, we'll see what it tastes like. We'll just keep our
we dropped the ball. We dropped the ball.
Blender.
You guys should have been first on the list. The ball got dropped.
Any other questions out there from our audience tonight? Even though I can't see you, I'm staring into a cup.
What was that? Any plans to upsize the distillery? Not at the moment, especially now because of everything that's going on. Unfortunately, just like a lot of the other companies out there, we're cutting a huge part of our budget to make sure that we make it through this, and that we're still here for you guys and working as with all cylinders firing. But as far as expansion, we had just added a second still last year. So we went from a 1 still to a 2 still operation. So I think that kind of was our expansion for the foreseeable future. We did add another bottling line also last year as well. So we now have two bottling facilities. And everything's still running, everything's still going, but again, given the current situation, we've also had to make cuts. So it'll be interesting to see how this fully affects the industry, and not just us as a company, but on the whole. But one thing's for sure is we're going to stick it out. We're going to make it through this, and we can't wait till we're out there actually back in person with you guys. And no, Gabe, you're not. My brother said, "Who's your favorite sibling?" Sorry, Gabe.
Yeah. And we're about to lose internet connection, just so everybody's aware.
It's fantastic. The 18-year is the first real full malted rye that we've put out. It's a double malt. It's actually malted rye with malted barley. It's fantastic. I think it's wonderful. It's still, yeah. Please, the malted rye.
Malted rye. The question was, what do I think of malted rye in general? And probably my favorite experience is going to be from Old Potrero, and I think they did a fantastic job. It's definitely one of the more unique whiskeys out there, malted ryes. You just don't see it a lot, but from the whiskeys that I have tasted, I don't think it's a bad idea at all, because they have come out to be quite tasty. A little bit more of that doughy intensity that you find in scotches, but is along with that rye spice that really gives a great balance of character. What? Do we have any other questions? Are we feeling good? I feel good. Laura,
I feel great. Yeah, I feel great.
Feel like we covered all our bases?
I think we did a pretty good job.
Awesome. Well, I speak for everybody at $7,000 when I say we appreciate all the support. Our GoFundMe page is definitely helped out everybody in this time of need. I'm sure everybody's aware we have no job. But outside of monetariness, from the bottom of our hearts, we honestly we miss our fans and we miss our people, and we can't wait to be rejoined with you. And I think I probably speak for Laura as well, that we appreciate you guys tuning in, because even though we can't see or hear your laughter, we hope it exists. And yeah, Laura, do you want to say anything before we tune out?
Thanks everybody for joining in, and what Josh said. Please help support these guys. These are the guys that do such an amazing job for us when they are open, and couldn't couldn't think of a better group of people. Help them out, and hopefully, in a month or two, we'll be able to all be face to face again.
Oh, that's sweet, Laura. I appreciate you saying that. And thank you again for your time and joining us. I know that your schedule is extremely packed right now on Friday night. And
Yeah.
for you to take time out of your busy schedule to join us tonight, it means a lot. And thank you to all of you out there. If you have any suggestions or think we should do something different or have a good idea, hit me up. Let me know, because I got plenty of time to figure this out. And thank you, Laura. We really do appreciate you. And I hopefully won't finish all these Whistlepig bottles tonight, but there's really no plans. I have no plans for tomorrow. Big shout out to Chad for putting this all together. He's our producer.
Thank you, Chad.
And thank you guys, and have a good night.